Good content. What good content do we have on the internet? Well, it's not going to come from the Farfa channel. Out of characters. Make sure you subscribe to the original content creator. A lot of views on this one here. We've got the art of bluffing in Yu-Gi-Oh! From what I understand, this is absolute cinema. Let's chill out, relax, hang back, and enjoy some nice
Swedish Nationals winner
time.
Herman Hansen has played hundreds of games of Yu-Gi-Oh! This weekend. The date is March 23rd, 2025, and there are about 8 hours left in this month's Duelist Cup. Hansen
Ooh, this is a DC Cup video?
is in the running for the first place in the tournament, which would win him a ticket to the World Championships. He loses the coin flip against a player with a name that translates to, "What are you doing for your future?" who I will refer to as Shorai, and in classic Master Duel fashion, Hansen only opens a singular hand trap.
Is this an analysis of the previous World Championship? Oh no, this is a replay from one of... I've watched this exact replay. It is genuinely maybe one of like the top 3 replays in the history of like Master Duel in terms of competitive, like, you know, integrity. It's up there with like Jesse's like freaking tier limit deck out in Worlds. I'm pretty sure Josh has something really iconic, but I don't remember what it was. But this I remember watching. It was unbelievable. Yugioh has a really crazy Mermail one as well. I love that one.
Nibiru, the primal being. The situation is dire. Within a couple of plays, his opponent is threatening to make Appaloosa before continuing their Snake Eye Fiendsmith combo, functionally eating Nibiru for breakfast. Now is his last shot to activate it. At this moment, Hansen is in an almost unwinnable position, and he's about to play one of the best games of his life.
This replay is so good. Genuinely, it's actually
Hansen
incredible.
makes the call to not use Nibiru here. He doesn't even take time to think about it, instead letting Shorai continue uninterrupted for the duration of their combo. Snake
Like, the difference between a good player to great player is, like, right here. Or, like, even just, like, an average player and a great player. Like, you naturally just think to yourself, like, they're gonna Apple me. Like, just drop the Nibiru. You might as well, like, use it, you know? But recognizing that it doesn't make a difference if you nib them here because you respect your opponent is good enough to be able to play through it, because a good Snake Eye hand will play through Nibiru like it did nothing. So you might as well hold it.
is strong for 2 main reasons: the redundancy of its playmakers and the power of its endboards. Let's quickly take a look at what Shorai has access to at the end of the turn. 3 monster negates in Appaloosa, a targeted permanent Omni negate in Sinful Spoils of Betrayal, 2 banishes off of the SP Little Knight waiting to be summoned off of the Masquerena lurking in the spell trap zone, a targeted monster negate with their set copy of Infinite Impermanence, 2 forms of battle protection in co-linked Nightmare Phoenix and Infinibo, a monster pop in the form of Promethean Princess, and follow-up plays on their next turn from the Fiendsmith engine.
How many real interrupts is that? Like 7?
All of this must be
more.
cleared
It's like
with
9,
the Nibiru
right?
that he has made the conscious.
Wait, no. How much actually is that? That's 3, 2 negates, and a pop. 6 real actual interruptions, plus all of the protections and follow-up. I think the hand has a hand trap as well.
Decision to not use, and the now 5
Is it
engine
7
cards that
to
he
8? Oh,
draws
plus the
into
SP,
for
yeah,
turn.
of course.
But as bleak
Oh,
as it
so that's
looks,
like 8.
all hope
That's
is
8
not
total.
lost.
So SP's technically
Hansen
2.
has one very significant advantage here: information. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of information. Hansen knows all but.
No, you don't get to put that in a video and not make me read it.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of information.
No. You don't get to put something like this in a video and don't make me read it. I gotta keep it a buck. This was a long video to put together, and right now I'm on the precipice of the longest part editing. I edit in the order you view it, and frankly, I'm scared about the amount I have left to do, and because of that, I'm putting it off by writing this shitty visual gag that will only appear for 10 frames or so in the finished video. Well, guess what? I saw it.
Hansen knows all but 2 of Shorai's cards, the Unknowns being a card in the hand and a mystery imperm lurking in the spell trap zone. In contrast, Shorai has almost no knowledge of Hansen's hand, other than the fact that he has used no hand traps on the previous turn. This could suggest that
the only thing that Shorai could know here is that Herman has Nibiru, and that's only assuming that Herman just didn't toggle off. So either Herman went into that turn knowing that he wasn't going to nib, or he had the opportunity to nib, sat and thought about it, and then decided not to nib. But it's very likely that Herman just toggled off and just knew that he was not going to Nibiru. Even if you toggle off, the Nibiru delay still shows. Okay, this right here is like a conspiracy. Is this true? I've heard of this, but I don't know if that's like, if this is like a conspiracy. Because I've heard of, like, genuinely a few, like, top players say that this is actually a thing. Okay, see, it looks controversial here. But apparently, there is a toggle for Nibiru, even if there isn't. Didn't Nesh test it? Do you have, like, a source for this or something? Is there, like, something? Distant Coder? Bro, this guy has programmer in his name. I trust him with my life. There's a tiny delay. You can feel it. All right, well. I think it's only when you have summon animations on. Ooh, that's very specific. Only on bad connections. At Grok, is this true? You need to turn off summon animations in order to make it stop. Wait, this is actually a thing? Your Nibiru is revealed if you keep summoning animations on? Yugioh plays more Master Duel than anyone, and he confirmed it. See, that's the thing. I've heard from top players, like, this is the thing. Even if you toggle off Nibiru, you can sense it. But that's like, yeah, I guess that's like the fucking Conqueror's hockey after like 1,000 high-rated games of Nibiru. Listen, if Yugioh confirmed it, I believe it.
The hand is full of starters.
So he probably knows he has nib, I guess,
engine
maybe.
requirements, or even board breakers. Hansen opens.
But that's like the top 0.% of a 0.% of players who would be able to like detect that. We can probably assume that he doesn't know there's Nibiru here, right? Otherwise, you know, he wouldn't have actually played into it.
With a copy of.
Bro just watched DK video. DK confirmed it as well. Wait, really? Bro just watched DK video. Hajime!
Cash Tier Unicorn and Snake Eye Ash.
Finger!
Powerfully get vulnerable cards that all but guarantee he is not saving multiple breakers in his grip to loosen up the board first. Weak pushes like this are a sign of desperation. After summoning Black Witch, which burns through the second Appaloosa negate and the Imperm, Hansen charges into battle. He intends to destroy his opponent's Black Witch for three main purposes. 1. It ensures Shorai's survival, permitting them to think more about follow-up instead of just disruption. 2. It demonstrates to Shorai that Hansen might be threatened by sinful spoils of Betrayal.
Wait, hold on.
Betrayal requires Black Witch on board to be able to use, and Hansen might be trying to trade his battle phase for it. 3. Destroying Black Witch.
Are these... Shorai is getting another turn, so they can afford to be greedier.
By battle gives Shorai the opportunity to trigger its Grave effect and tribute Snake Eye Flameburst Dragon, which enables follow-up for Shorai in the 5 summons necessary to activate Nibiru. Shorai takes the bait, and as a result gets their last Appaloosa negate blown out by the rock. Each remaining piece of the board is systematically picked apart in Hansen's ensuing combo. Engraver sends the Nib token, Little Knight banishes the Flameburst Dragon, and Masquerena makes Underworld Goddess to check any follow-up plays involving Promethean Princess. Hansen earns his 1000 DP, saves the replay, and continues his climb. The outcome of this game ultimately does not amount to much, but it doesn't mean the contents don't. After I watched it for the first time, a question that I commonly ask myself—
He watched it on my stream! Best ever Burning Abyss gameplay. I'm not beating the Farfa viewer allegations this time.
when reviewing close.
Well, listen, guys, I take some credit for this because I watched someone be good at the game. Important. It's a reality that everyone has to accept. I participated and contributed in some degree and capacity to the content that is amazing and well produced from Out of Character's YouTube channel because of the fact that I sat here and I looked at it. I observed, I just watched. Listen, if that doesn't deserve a gifted sub right now, I don't know what does.
Games came to mind. What is the most pivotal moment here? It's definitely subjective, but I don't think this is the
By the way, because I don't think I uploaded that, so that must have just been like a live, maybe that was back when I was YouTube live streaming.
Pivotal moment of the game. I don't even think it's here. I think Hansen wins because right here, he decides to do nothing at all. Hansen wins the game because he does not press this button, ever. If Hansen pressed this button on—
Wait, replays, hold on, this says off. If you watch a replay, it doesn't show you their toggles, does it? It's editing. I've been deceived!
on his opponent's turn for even the smallest amount of time, the game would—
Wait, so you're telling me that Infinity War isn't, like, live recorded? Like, Marvel movies are, like, they're edited? There's no way. There's no way.
be over, and here's why. Throughout the course of this game, after this exact moment,
live.
Nibiru is a card that probably does not enter Shorai's mind. I asked Hansen about this game in Twitter DMs, and here is what he speculated about it.
I recognized he had enough bodies to go for the early
Real voice reveal.
Appaloosa, so playing the Nibiru in his turn wouldn't trade for anything on his end board. It was therefore safer to keep it and try to force him to summon 5 in my turn. It's really rare for a Nibiru to be played like this. Nibiru in Master Duel is already quite uncommon, at least on higher rank.
Alright, let me try to do my interpretation for you since Herman is Swedish. I recognized he had enough bodies to go for the early apple, so playing Nibiru on his turn wouldn't trade for anything on his end board. It was therefore sorry, right, we're gonna stop now. Why is Sonny reading it? That's a good question. Why is Sonny reading this?
Hansen is right. In the collection of top 100 lists on Master Duel meta, it's only featured in 25 of the 82 decks. It wasn't the most standard card this time, and often those that played it only packed 1 or 2 copies. He's also correct that the way it gets used is weird. If you draw Nibiru, the common times to use it would be when a card that can negate it like Appaloosa is being threatened, or at the end of the main phase if paired with another card like Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure. Holding it past the first turn is an almost guarantee that it will never hit the field. However, you don't necessarily have to use Nibiru to reveal that you have it. In order to respond to your opponent's effects in a game of Master Duel, you must have a card you can activate and set your toggle to on. A toggle is a switch that, when turned on, lets the game know you would like to be offered the opportunity to activate a card effect. Sometimes, people want the game to stop them every time they have the opportunity to use something, so that they can think about whether they would want to use one of their cards, always keeping the switch on. However, this gives the opponent free information. After all, you're only going to get stopped if you have a card that meets its activation conditions, which makes it easy for the opponent to narrow down what card you might have. This information revealed by toggling is something Hansen is very aware of when playing Master Duel.
I never show my toggles in the game unless I misclick. In my opinion, half the MD game is playing with toggles, making your opponent think you have something you don't, or making them unaware of the things you do have. He of course did not know I had a Nibiru toggle.
For Hansen's plan to work, he has to hide his Nibiru, otherwise his opponent has access to some of the easiest counterplay in the world, a true classic that even old heads will remember. Just don't summon 5 times on your opponent's turn. Hansen even comments on it.
He could have played around it by just not sending his Flemberge, but he likely didn't even have Nib in mind.
If even the tiniest drop of priority had been passed to Hansen at any time during the main phase of the first turn, Shorai would consider the threat of Nibiru, and then there would be no way Hansen could possibly win. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of information, and Hansen held all the cards, so in this game, he navigated the line to victory.
I wonder if he, like,
I'd like to talk a
ever
bit
at any
about
point
information in Yu-Gi-Oh!
or
because it's
anyone
incredibly
thinks about
important.
Nibiru
The ways
on
good
their
players
turn.
acquire, conceal, and reveal
very rare
information
thing,
are
but it can
crucial
happen.
skills that separate them from the rest. The first time I was made aware of how crucial information could be came with the death of Mind Crush. If you're an old head that remembers not summoning 5 times on your
remember
opponent's
this
turn,
bullshit?
it's possible you remember this card being used in a slew of side decks up until around 2019. It even spent some time on the limited list. By modern standards,
Really? 2012. Wow, this thing was unlimited just before I started playing. That's crazy.
you might even feel like this makes sense. The effect is similar to banned cards like a Pointer of the Red Lotus and Smoke Grenade of the Thief, Confiscation, and the Forceful Sentry. Hell, even Talents is limited these days. Unlike these cards, Mind Crush is at 3, and sees no play in Yu-Gi-Oh's advanced format. This is by design in a very literal sense. In 2019, there was a rule change that removed the need for the opponent to verify that certain effects involving areas of private information had been resolved correctly. Back in the day, after you activated Mind Crush, you could verify the hand of your opponent to make sure they weren't hiding any copies of the card you called. This gave
That's
the card some
crazy
additional
that,
utility.
like,
If you activated Mind Crush,
we
regardless of
randomly
whether or
found
not
a
you called
very
card in your
specific
opponent's hand
clip of that
correctly,
happening.
You gained full
Like-
knowledge of what they had to work with and could structure the rest of the duel accordingly. This aspect of the card is built into cards like a Pointer and Smoke Grenade, and ended up being the deciding factor in Mind Crush's viability, which immediately plummeted. But why is this information so important? You're still playing with the same cards, right? In other card games, effects like this can exist without too much of an issue. Thoughtseize in Magic is a card that is so well known that I've learned about it through osmosis, and I boot up Arena like once a year on average. One of Yu-Gi-Oh's defining traits in contrast to other games is its speed, and in most games the contents of your opening hand will define much of what happens in the game. Therefore, getting to peek at your opponent's hand and take a card is one of the strongest effects you can have, because of the taking, but also because of the peeking.
Mel got a feature? Dude, I'm so mad. I could have played against Duel potentially at some point. This was my round 2 opponent at YCS Birmingham. I lost the coin flip, and I played through her full Yubel board. But then the last card in hand was like an Ash or like Nib or something. I can't remember. It was a hand trap, and I couldn't beat the U-Bell board. I almost played through the U-Bell board. Damn.
Now,
Little salty.
aside from a few very recent exceptions, it is true that most of these
Melody
choose
Luffy.
something to hand loop
Melody
cards aren't
Luffy.
available in the format and haven't been for a while. If you're not a water aficionado, the process of gathering information is a lot less straightforward than just looking at your opponent's hand, and is divided into a couple different kinds of things. It's worth noting that not all of this information is completely reliable. Very little in
issue.
Yu-Gi-Oh is completely
Losing the
reliable,
coin flip
but
against
that does not mean that the
U-Bell
information
is cursed, man.
useless. The first type of
Look
information
at this
is what
dude's
you can
arm.
rely.
Dude, this guy has muscles where there just aren't muscles. Like his biceps have biceps, which then also have biceps. The fuck?
But
That's me.
that does not mean that the information is useless. The first
Yeah, he
type of
skips leg day,
information is
though.
what you can learn from the game state. This is the basic stuff and encompasses a wide
What you can learn by not jingling keys during your opponent's memento combo. See, that's the only thing that keeps me going, right? Like, if my opponent is going to do a memento combo uninterrupted, I kind of need the keys.
variety of facts that you can gather just from paying attention to the game, and it's here because it's by far the most reliable. One of the reasons tournament players often ask about the number of cards in hand is because it gives them a sense of the amount remaining they need to play through.
I was at Worlds, so I didn't really watch the live stream, but I did not know they had player cams. Huh. Oh no, I did. I just didn't realize day one was the back room cams. Yeah, no, I remember it because it was like on stage for day two, so it looked better. But they're using the back room cams for day one.
Helps them decide how to make use of their
You
resources.
guys remember the
and
back room
interruptions.
drama? That was
For
great.
example, let's say I'm playing a game and my opponent has no cards in hand. I know for a fact I do not have to think about Nibiru, because I can see that they have nothing, and therefore there is no possibility of it being activated. The second
One thing you'll notice about Yu-Gi-Oh! Mannerisms, just trust me on this, if your opponent starts checking their graveyard when there doesn't seem like a logical reason for them to check their graveyard, you're winning. That's like the telltale sign that they are in a bad spot. When you start doing the graveyard dance and fidgeting and doing the little fan the graveyard thing when it's when your opponent's turn, you're in a good spot. Trust.
type is what you can deduce from your opponent's actions within
How do
the
characters
game.
react?
For example,
Yeah,
let's say
there's
my
the
opponent,
goal.
like, summons a spirit with
There he
House of Blue
is.
on their turn.
I'm
Opting
reacting to a video that I reacted to. If you think about it.
not to activate the effect to search a mausoleum of white. While there might be reasons to do this to play around certain cards, a common reason is that they might not have a search target. Because of this, you might deduce that they have all their copies of Mausoleum in their opening hand, or are not playing the card. The third type is what you can guess at from your knowledge of standard deck lists. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has common patterns in deck building and gameplay, and you can use these to assume things about what your opponent might have. For example, if my opponent playing Blue Eyes has a set card, I might assume it's something like Infinite Impermanence, Majesty of the White Dragons, True Light, Dominus Purge, Called by the Grave, or Prime.
Okay, all right, that's like
I
8
probably
cards,
wouldn't
man. Come
assume
on.
it's something like House of Adhesive Tape.
Wait, yo, if the defense of a monster summoned by your opponent is 500 or less, the monster's destroyed. Hey, yo. It destroys any malice name on normal summon. Start the buyout. Listen, man. You want some tech cards for Yummy as well, I'm pretty sure? There you go. There you go.
Despite the fact that the card is at 3 compared to Called by at 1, I am not sure anyone has ever put a copy of House of Adhesive Tape in a card sleeve, so
mean,
it does
come
not
on, they're
make
kind of
sense
the
to
same
play
thing.
around it. I might also assume that the set is more likely to be a card like Imperm or Purge compared to Majesty.
But, like, listen, it could be. All right, hold on. When was this thing last reprinted? Adhesive Tape. Adhesive. House of Adhesive. Oh, there's already another card called that. Okay, House of Adhesive. 1,500 copies from Spell Ruler 25th anniversary. Oh, wait, this thing has actually been reprinted. Okay, yeah, they did those anniversary sets.
or True Light, because
Oh,
of
okay.
standard
This
ratios
card
the
is
cards
not
are
rare.
played at. These assumptions should change based on the type of person you're playing against. If your Blue Eyes opponent
yo.
is X4 at a local and is playing without a mat, you might decide that taking extra effort to destroy a set trap before going to the battle phase is a good idea on the chance it's a creative choice. Knowledge of standard deck
Creative
lists
choice,
can't
TM.
always inform you of cards played by creative deck builders at the bottom tables, but creative deck builders also play at the top tables with unexpected techs meticulously chosen to beat the standard stuff through hours of testing. This
Mistaken arrest. The spicy tech card, huh? You can't add cards. Ooh. Ooh. Write that down. Write that down.
doesn't mean that making assumptions is bad either. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so many cards in the pool that you can't possibly play around everything. It's better to account for the types of cards you think your opponent is likely to play, and shift your expectations when playing against it.
What is this I think this is a dueling book analysis website, right? I'm pretty sure this one. It tells you the number of cards played and percentage win rates of things and stuff, right? YGO Scope, I think it's called. Is this still around?
Opponents. The fourth type, which might be controversial, is what you can gather from your opponent outside of the game. If you've been scouting during a tournament, you might even know your opponent's list card for card. You can look at this video of mine if you want more information on that. This category also includes a variety of tricks, traps, reads, and tells that can honestly be so complex that they might warrant their own video later, or a 400-page book if your name is Patrick Hoban. It is important to note that the farther away you get from what you can see, the less dependable the information tends to be. Shourai lost based on this deduction. If my opponent opened Nibiru, they would have used it during the first turn. Nibiru is also not the most commonly played card, so it isn't likely that my opponent drew into it for turn. Hansen never presented any information to contradict this assumption until he literally activated Nibiru on the second turn. In Yu-Gi-Oh, this kind of play is often called a slow roll, where you activate a card later than expected so that your opponent can't play around it. It's one of the ways you can use less reliable information against your opponent to get them to do what you want. The other, far more
literal
famous way to
perfect
do
6
this
card
is
hand to
called
out the boards, but obviously, you know,
bluffing
you needed
is not
to,
a new concept or
you needed your
unique to
opponent to make
Yu-Gi-Oh.
mistakes.
People have probably been doing it for as far back as there have been games with hidden information, the most notable being War.
I was expecting him to say like a game, or like chess or something, you know, as far back as like chess or like I don't know, some other crazy board game maybe that has actual hidden information. Guy, bro just said war, like yes, conflict.
父亲，何故退兵？已不知诸葛向来用兵谨慎，不曾弄险。如今城门大开，不见兵将，城中必有埋伏。再者，诸葛亮琴声又含杀机，我兵若进城，必中其心。快撤！
A close second, however, would be poker.
What it
Poker
feels like
honestly
to
shares
set
a lot of
listen, out of characters, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. This bit has gone over the heads of like 98% of the people who watch this. Like I'm pretty sure they are not entwined with Chinese military history to really fully grasp how good this is, unfortunately.
A close second, however, would be poker.
But you can
poker
get the vibe.
honestly shares a lot of similarities with Yu-Gi-Oh as far as the importance of information goes.
Poker has monster zones? Yo, that's crazy.
Poker honestly shares...
Yo, there's like an EMZ in poker? Dude! That cooks. It's okay to admit you're not educated on traditional Chinese novels. I do not judge you.
There's a lot of similarities with Yu-Gi-Oh as far as the importance of information goes, since both games require you to structure your plays around guesses at what the opponent has hidden from you. Even a lot of the vocabulary is shared. Words like tilt, bricks, drawing the nuts, angle shooting, and bubbling are used in both games. Though Yu-Gi-Oh as bluffing...
I'm sorry, but listening to like the equivalent of an old man professor say angle shooting and opening the nuts is just too funny. That's these players refer to their common combos as opening the nuts.
in its roots as far back as the tip cards included in its first ever reprint set. Poker is practically synonymous with it. In poker, not ever bluffing.
You think poker
is
players
actively
say that kind of
detrimental
stuff?
to the results of a well-rounded player. In Hall of Fame player Doyle Brunson's Poker Strategy Classic Super System, he writes,
If you've never had the opportunity to see a real no-limit game, you'd be very surprised how much bluffing there is. Good no-limit players bluff 4 or 5 times as often as good players in limit games. Bluffing in no-limit requires real strategy and the ability to size up your opponents every time you sit down to play.
Bluffing in poker is a great equalizer. It is both a tool used by aggressive and advantaged players to bully out their competition, and the origin of the phrase any two, referring to the fact that
Kamala Harris?
To bully out their competition, and equalizer. It is both a tool used by aggressive
I
and
can't be the only one who
players
saw
to
it for a
bully out their
second.
Competition, and the origin of the phrase
Was it
any
just
two,
me? Come on,
referring
someone
to the
else
fact
must
that
have,
even
like,
the lowest 2 cards might be able to
name
win
a
a
woman.
poker hand through bluffing. As a result, a significant amount of time and effort has gone into writing theory about bluffing and
equals
reading players.
Kamala.
One of the main takeaways is this. For a bluff to be effective, it needs a story to tell.
That's another thing that distinguishes Hold'em from other games, except for the now nearly dead game of 5-card stud. It's very easy to see when you have
I really
the
don't
nuts,
get
or
the
very close
poker
to it.
analogies.
You
Don't
can
know
use that fact
anything
to
about
great
poker.
advantage in Hold'em because you can represent or bluff when you don't have the nuts, and when you're quite certain you're.
I can't be the only person who read this as Super Saiyan as well. God damn it, I have the vested interest of a 15-year-old.
Opponent doesn't have them either.
Bluffing has
I need to read a
present
book, man. It's
credible
been a
threat,
while.
And in poker, that credible threat comes from a postured phantom of an unbeatable hand, the nuts. If the flop comes down with a 10, a jack, and a queen, and a player starts shoving chips in the center, it doesn't take a genius to start to fear the straight. The shared cards in poker dictate the possibility of these strong potential hands. And if a player makes the read that the others at the table are hesitant to commit to the pot, a bluff might be all it takes to earn free money with garbage cards. This is a gross oversimplification, of course. As with most well-designed games, any action in poker has a good deal of
also
options
fear
for
the
counterplay.
straights.
Without the story, though, bluffing
If you're not
inherently
misogynistic,
doesn't make
name
sense and
3
becomes
women.
ineffective. This is something
Bell
that
Star,
transcends poker and applies
Ash
to all
Blossom,
bluffs. Let's take a look at an example of a bluff at an
Closeman.
extremely high-profile premiere event, my locals in February of 2024, and broke it down into some of the critical pieces. At this tournament, I was
My
playing branded,
locals.
and my opponent was playing Tri-Brigade Lyrilisc. This was the first time my opponent and I had played, so we didn't have any prior knowledge of each other's deck lists. I lose the die roll and am forced to go second in game 1. My opponent combos into a board of Utopic Draco Future, Appaloosa with 4 negates, and a 5-material Ensemble Robin with 2 unknown cards in hand.
Miserable.
I open Super Poly, a copy of Bestial Lubellion.
Okay, this is a pretty easy board to crack. I don't know. I'm not a branded player, but this one don't look too difficult. I'm gonna be honest with you. I see 2 wind monsters and a super poly. This one should be quite simple.
And 3 engine cards that I didn't think to write in my Discord message to my friends after the tournament ended. Utopic Draco Future, often called UD.
Of course he plays branded. You need to understand, like, the only people who play branded are people with like 4-digit IQs, okay? That's why he made this video.
EF is not the easiest card to out with Branded. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, meaning that there are 2 main ways to get rid of it. The banish effect of Mirror Jade, or the on-summon effect of Fallen of Albaz to use UDF as fusion material. This is made more complicated by the fact that UDF can negate a monster effect once a turn, meaning that it inherently resists its own outs.
Can't say that word. Can't say that. Can't say inherently. Can't say that word.
Going into my turn, UDF is what I am most concerned over, since Ensemble Robin and Appaloosa are easily answerable by my Super Poly. I start the turn by doing just this, and Super Poly the monsters into a Mud Dragon of the...
Isn't it better to start Lebellion and then chain the super poly so that the Lebellion still resolves, but it also potentially plays around Ash? It is what it is.
My next
Who cares?
step is to activate its effect. Mud Dragon has the
Does he have a
ability to
master
change its
replay of
attribute,
locals?
preventing your opponent from targeting
Oh, it's just
monsters of that
reanimating it.
attribute. In a regular
Maybe it's a digital locals.
branded deck, the right choice for this would probably be Dark, since it can protect many of the important dark cards in your deck like Albaz, Kit, Aluber, Albion, and Mirror Jade from your opponent's effects. Instead, I choose Light. Here is where I start writing the story of my bluff, because I'm depending on my opponent piecing together why I might go out of my way to activate Mud Dragon at all, and why I chose that attribute in particular. My next play is to activate the Bestial Lubellion, which resolves and allows me to add a copy of Bestial Magnamut from my deck to my hand. I activate my Magnamut and target the Lubellion in my grave, and my opponent is forced to think about what I might be doing. None of my actions
Why didn't you banish his nib?
are a direct threat to UDF, but they convey a couple of things for my opponent to deduce. 1. I am not planning to summon the Bestial Lubellion in my grave, since if Magnamut resolves it will be banished. 2. By banishing Lubellion, I am paying a significant opportunity cost to put Magnamut on the board. I must not have anything better to banish, and putting it on the field must enable some kind of important play involving Magnamut. 3. I've
In the real game, Nib wasn't in the grave? Oh, okay. I recreated the game in Master, which is why it's turned 28. It was so that Josh could react to it since it wasn't depicted using a simulator. We're catering to Josh's Konami contract? That's so funny.
chosen to make my Mud Dragon light, meaning that Magnamut being summoned will leave me with a level 4 light and a level 6 dark monster. My opponent makes sense of the story and understands the bluff. I am threatening to synchro summon a Chaos
Why didn't you use the fake Master Duel, though? Because that's, like, indistinguishable, you know?
Angel with both a light and a dark monster.
Would've been
this
easier.
Chaos Angel would be
Having to
unaffected by
actually sit down and
activated
do this
monster
shit.
effects, unable to be destroyed by battle, and would be able to banish UDF on summon. This would result in me winning the game because my opponent's deck probably did not have any outs to it if it gets summoned. It's even partially supported
very
by my
distinguishable.
opponent's knowledge of standard lists.
Yeah, Konami don't know.
Bestial engines are common choices in synchro decks like Centurion, or even certain builds of Branded. There's just one problem. I don't own a copy of Chaos Angel. Branded's most powerful card, Branded Fusion, locks you into fusion monsters for the duration of the turn, which means that summoning anything else besides fusions is a huge problem. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of information.
That description is so funny coming from a branded player. Branded Fusion restricts you from summoning non-fusions. This is a big problem.
Because my opponent had never played me
Big
before,
problem.
my story of Chaos Angel makes enough sense, and it presents a threat that he thinks is too dangerous to allow. He uses the UDF to negate Magnamut's summoning effect, which lets me out it cleanly with Mirror Jade later in the turn and win the game. By thinking about the story you're telling through the way you choose to play, you can bluff cards that aren't even in your deck. This is part of what is so important about managing what information you're showing your opponent. Let's say I discarded a copy of everyone's favorite banned card.
Gimmick Puppet Nightmare.
Activate Super Polymerization.
Fucking whiplash. I
Nightmare
did
was
not
only played in
expect a
branded
guest
builds that
appearance.
played Branded Fusion, so just the act of revealing I have a Nightmare in my deck would have given my opponent enough information to conclude that Magnamut being summoned was not worth negating. This is entirely due to the order in which I reveal my cards. A question you might ask is this. Was my opponent's choice to negate Magnamut correct? If you are in my opponent's position,
No.
should you call the bluff? This situation is admittedly tough for them. Losing their two main pieces of interaction to Super Poly probably made it difficult to win regardless, but I think it's worth exploring these kinds of situations to know what to think about when they happen to you. In a 2018 Reddit post, Oscar from MST
Oh no,
TV
please don't
explores
refer to
bluffing
Reddit.
in Yu-Gi-Oh! He goes over a couple of different kinds of bluffs in the post, of varying
Yo. The thinking bluff, the confidence bluff, the you lose buff, the rushed bluff. Did anyone have a link to this post? I think they'll react to a post.
legality, but he proposes a way of looking at potential bluffs to determine when it's good to do them.
You know, it'd be funny to look at this historically and see how many of these are now illegal, because you can't do a significant number of these now, most likely. We'll
and
see
when
though.
it's good to call them. Bluffing in general often ends up requiring a player to play suboptimally in some way in order to make the bluff convincing. In my example of bluffing in Branded, I intentionally had to avoid discarding cards for super polymerization that might be better in the graveyard, like the Puppet or Despian Tragedy, because they gave up information that contradicts the bluff. I couldn't make Muddragon dark to protect my important dark monsters, and I could have even ended up banishing my one copy of Bestial Lubellion. Even classics, like setting a normal spell as a bluff, take a card from
I still don't really understand what you were hoping to achieve by declaring the Mud Dragon. Like, if anything, you could have just lost to like a Veiler on your Mirror Jades, right? Which would have just like ruined everything. Make it light, so it's light and for the Chaos Angel, right, yeah, true.
your hand where it is safer and put it on the field where it could be destroyed for no benefit or cause other problems.
By the way, these tip cards are so funny. When did they stop making these, by the way? You can set a normal spell card, ritual, or equip face down in your spell and trap zone, but there is only one major reason to do it. Bluff your opponent to thinking you have a trap card. If you're not bluffing, there is very little reason to set a spell card that is not a quick play spell card. You cannot. Wait, what? Oh, continued on back. I thought someone just like stopped writing the tip.
Like in poker, bluffing usually involves you taking some level of risk that could pay off if your opponent behaves in the way that you want them to. Not all bluffs are risky though.
What if you're
Letting
an
your
Infernity
opponent know
player?
that you need a moment to think after their 5th summon has no in-game cost and is completely legal if you don't take too long, but might route them into a weaker board that plays better into Nibiru when you don't have it. There are also times when your position is so bad that any amount of risk is acceptable for a bluff that could get you back in the game. In this video, Jesse Cotton highlights a theoretical bluff in Labyrinth from the finals of YCS Raleigh in 2024. In this situation, Jack Zhou, who is on Labyrinth,
Oh, I
is in
remember
a losing
watching
position
this.
against Cameron Neal on Snake Eye. Zhou has a backjack engrave that can only pull a useless duplicate Big Welcome from his deck that his opponent is unaware of, and a Nibiru in hand. Zhou has the opportunity to use Backjack to bait Appaloosa and then activate Nibiru as Chainlink 3, very similar to how Hansen activated his Nibiru earlier. Deciding to try to use Backjack in this way costs Zhou nothing, because just like Hansen, he is quite literally dead if he activates Nibiru before Appaloosa just from the sinful spoils he knows Neil has set. There is no risk to worry about here, because using Backjack as a bluff represents the only potential path to victory for Zhou in this game. Riskier bluffs with large rewards become better and better options the farther behind you are in a game, to the point where taking one isn't really a risk at all. But what if you are significantly ahead? In these scenarios, gambling on a play with risk that could lose you your position is not advisable, so there is usually little reason to bluff. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not like poker in this respect, because there is no variable amount of money to be gained from tricking your opponent. You can only win or lose, so when you are in a very good position, you should be primarily concerned with maintaining it. By that logic, if you are significantly behind, it is often better to assume your opponent is not bluffing in these scenarios, because there is not really a need for them to put themselves at risk when they have a way to win anyways. On the flip side though, if you're significantly ahead, it's often better to call someone's bluff. If you're Anil here playing Snake Eye into the theoretical bluff, you might question the reason for Zhou not using backjack before Appaloosa gets made.
The thing is, yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, you could, like, if you're Cam here, you probably know where, like, you assume your opponent knows where you're going to make Appaloosa. So unless they just straight up forgot, then yeah, they would have used backjack before the Appaloosa summon. But they knew that the only win condition here was to resolve Nibiru, which doesn't do anything pre-Appaloosa, because they keep playing. And post-Appaloosa, it's dead, so you have to force them into it. That's pretty cool.
You would be right to do so, since it opens you up to losing to cards like Nibiru and Ghost Ogre. This can get pretty complicated when applied to real games, so it's worth noting that every situation is unique.
I guess like Nib
There's
isn't
no
like super popular in
theory
lab
for when it comes to calling potential bluffs. With our newfound knowledge, let's take a look at one of the most famous bluffs of all time, the finals of YCS Pasadena in 2022. This match is exceptional, with tons of back and forth, passion, and excitement between Hani Jawari and Jesse Cotton. Most importantly though, this match is awesome because it's
Jesus Christ. I think the only way I would be able to watch this game would be like with, I don't know, like commentary. I mean like commentary, not like, you know, average YCS commentator commentary. I mean like these two fucking guys like explaining the cards, because like watching a finals of a tier mirror sounds like a nightmare for an average person.
Being a tier mirror, the situation the players find themselves in is pretty complicated, so I'll only be covering a few ideas around it. You can find Jesse's video on it linked in the description if you're part of the 99.9% he's referring to in this message to me and want a more in-depth breakdown. The stakes.
Personally, not interested in talking about it more. It's been talked to death, and 99.9% of people don't even understand what's going on, but here's the highlight from that stream. My god, dude, bro got shut down by Jesse. What a dick. I'm not interested in talking about it. Okay, dude. All right.
99.9% he's referring
to.
In
Yeah, what the fuck?
And like, a more in-depth breakdown.
Go watch
the
the
stakes
video.
Of this game were high.
Wait, what does it say? It's probably like the 50th YouTuber to squeeze content out of this game.
He's referring to in this message to me and want a more in-depth breakdown. The stakes of this game were high. Hani was looking for his first YCS win as a solo player, and Jesse had taken 4th place and 2nd place finishes with tier elements at the last 2 YCSs he attended, and sought to seal the deal. Both players take a game off of each other, bringing them into a game.
If Jesse wins this, well, even if he doesn't win this, he has 3 top 4s with tier limit. That's it's a pretty good record with tier limit. I have a bronze icon in Mastodon, so realistically, who's the better tier player here, right? If you think about it.
3. Hani goes first and mills a lot of cards off of the normal summon Diviner to send a Yugioh. Both players hit copies of.
A good description for a tier game. Hani goes first and mills a lot of cards. True.
Keldo and Medora, Injin, and Jesse searches a copy.
Jesus fucking Christ, and then Jesse mills Kelbeck, but like, oh my god, dude. Like, I just, like, how do you play a tier mirror? A full power tier mirror? Like, how do you do that? Someone is cheating. Someone is cheating. Like, that's just the only explanation. The average, like, player having a tier mirror is like, someone's just doing the wrong thing. Like, someone's missing triggers, activation orders, and chain links are technically being resolved incorrectly. No one can do these, like, properly. I just, like, you need, like, a notepad to track every fucking chain. Like, it's not possible. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. You just do it on Mastodon.
Copy of Tier Element's Crime up.
I would play it correctly. Do we trust him, chat? Lucas EEV. Lucas Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Do we believe him? Is he lying? Is he telling the truth? I would trust him. Yes. No. Okay, fa. No. Yes. My go.
From Scream. After a couple of chains, Jesse is able to disrupt his opponent by making a Kaleido Heart to shuffle back Hani's Kikalos. Hani in turn is able to slap together an Abyss Dweller and seizes board control by using triple tactic talents to steal Jesse's Mud Dragon, which he uses to make a Baron de Fleur to destroy the Kaleido Heart. 7 of the cards mentioned so far are now on the Forbidden and Limited list. Jesse is locked from using his grave and spends his next couple of
look
turns
what they
baiting
took
up a
from you
Baron
guys.
Negate,
Look
developing
what
his
they took
shufflers,
from you.
and outing the Abyss Dweller. Hani shuffles it back and remakes it, searching a Solyak in the process.
Oh my god,
Jesse is able to cling
recycling
to
your
life by
dweller
forcing
is
Hani
so
to waste his battle
degenerate.
phase to out crime turn 2 and a shuffler turn 4, and he is then able to use a Bestial to finally attempt to win back board control from Hani. Jesse's attack here puts the players in this very interesting position. The threat of the still unused crime with Merle on the field looms over Hani, cutting him off of many potential lines. If Hani lets the attack go through, he will lose his Rhino Heart, so he opts to use it to bluff. By flipping Solyak, Hani threatens to send Rhino Heart to grave and use its grave effect, requiring a discard of a tier limits card in his hand. This could get his engine going and put him in the driver's seat for the rest of the match. But Hani doesn't have a tier limits card in his hand. His only card is a Magnamut. Jesse neglects to call the bluff, negating the Solyak with his copy of Crime, which leads to him losing the game to Hani's Bestial.
That's it. Ruby summon, Druid's Word affects it, and Hani gets the top hand, White gets executed champion.
Doesn't Jesse technically have the opportunity there to ask, are you activating the effect when he uses Sullik? Because the bluff there is flipping Sullik. But you don't need to flip Sullik and use it. If you want to do that, I think you have to declare using it immediately. Is that how it works? The issue isn't Sullik effect. It's threatening Rhino Heart and Grave after sending it. Well, yeah, but like, if he doesn't have... Oh, wait, but you can still use Sullik as a negate there. Yeah. No. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, you can always use the Sullik regardless, true. I was thinking one step ahead there.
When this game aired, and in some of the subsequent live streams and videos that covered it, certain critics casted Jesse's decision to negate Solyak as a mistake, him not recognizing Hani.
We gotta talk about the 5 video on this. No hate, this game is confusing, and I think he handled the situation about as well as he possibly could have.
Hani's bluff for what it is.
Completely
In reality,
bamboozled.
though, it's not so simple. For starters, there are only a couple of cards that Hani could have in hand that could even make sense here. Scream, Rhino, Merle, and Havness would probably have been used differently. You might even ask why Hani needs to bait out Crime with a bluff in the first place. Because Crime requires a tier monster on the field to be used, it's a very fragile disruption here. If Jesse makes any sort of link play to get his engine rolling, Merle is gone and Crime turns off. If Hani has a monster with a moderate amount of attack on board, like the Abyss Dweller he has already, he can attack over Merle and Crime turns off.
So I think he assumes the card in my hand is not doing anything. So if he just does nothing here, and I kill his Rhino Heart, and I have Merle Sarnia in the field, if I pass back, he just goes, draw, Dweller attack Merle, reveal Magnamut, make a Charmer of his own, search another Bestial in the end phase as well, and I don't have a Shuffler in my grave anymore because it's in my hand still, the Keldo, and it's just way worse. And I no longer have follow-up now because my one tier in play, my level 2 is gone.
Hani doesn't need to bluff here because Jesse's position is honestly horrible, and Hani can get himself into an advantageous position without any gambling. By bluffing with Solyak, Hani opens himself up to an unneeded chance to lose if Jesse lets the Solyak go through and redeclares his attack to destroy Abyss Dweller. Jesse accepts the bluff not necessarily because Hani's story is convincing, but because he sees how little value Crime has in the current position. Getting his Shuffler into the graveyard and getting rid of...
Does anyone know what Hani said there? Jesse resolves Crime and then he looks at the away into the crowd and he says something, right?
But because
he's talking here. He's speaking to someone in the crowd.
he sees how little value Crime has in the current position. Getting his Shuffler into
It's
the graveyard
probably
and getting rid of
something
Solyak could help him
cringe.
in the top decking war in a way Crime just won't. It's a judgment made to maximize value
Read his
and give
lips?
himself
Yeah,
the
true.
best odds of winning based on the information he has available to him. So calling it a mistake is a little short-sighted. There are many scenarios where bluffing isn't a good idea, and if Jesse had come to a different conclusion here, Honey had the chance of losing a game that was pretty close to locked up. As the juices of potential bluffs ferment in the mind.
Wait, so Jesse ended up... So Jesse was... Did he make a mistake or not then? I didn't really understand what the actual conclusion was, because most people said Jesse made a mistake. Jesse clarified he didn't make a mistake? He didn't, okay. But if Jesse knew he had a tier in hand, the conclusion is that it doesn't matter. Okay. Interesting. Alright. Call me dumb, I'm still failing to understand why Jesse couldn't just wait for the Rhino effect activation to chain the crime. Yeah, good point. Why couldn't Jesse just wait for crime activation? Oh, because you can chain block, I think? He wanted the solid gone for the grind game. Right, okay. Interesting.
minds of all of you
Even still having it explained to me, and having played tier, not this kind of tier, but having played tier, I still feel like an idiot. I still don't get this. This shit is complicated.
who have made it this far. I wanted to finish this essay going over some of the rules around bluffing. I have no doubt my audience is composed
we
of
actually have
strong and
rules here.
experienced players, so I'm sure you've taken the time to read Yu-Gi-Oh's tournament policy documents at some point. But on the off chance
Clueless. Yeah, you guys have all read this, right, guys? Right?
you need a refresher, I'll go over a few key lines in the misrepresenting the game state section, and list a corresponding bluffer trick that is made illegal with them. You'll find that many of these rules do not look favorably on intentional bluffs that take place outside the confines of the game, which is a reason why I've not opted to go over stuff like tells, reads, and ways to get information outside of the game in this video. With that in mind, let's take a look at our first rule.
Duelists may not perform actions that would intentionally mislead their opponent or a tournament official about the game state.
Some of you might remember the controversy around Andre Torres getting suspended for intentionally attempting to mislead his opponents through the use of a Sword Soul token.
Just some tokens, you put these on top, they think that you're playing with Sword Soul.
It's so funny because I'm pretty sure someone got banned exactly for this before this incident. Right? So, like, if you're a competitive player who keeps up to date with, like, deck profiles and stuff, like, surely you would have heard of that. Because this exact thing has happened. That's such a dumb rule. Okay, like, it is against the rules, but conceptually, do we think it's a dumb rule? I mean, kind of, right? I mean, who gives a shit, right? Like, if you're trying to manipulate your opponent by making them think you're playing Sky Striker, by playing a Striker mat and a Striker calls playing Striker sleeves, then it's like, you know, I'll assume it if you want, but, like, ultimately, just... It's just, it feels like it's harmless. It doesn't feel like it like does anything. It's like, oh, look, Sword Soul token. I might be playing Sword Soul. It's like, okay, cool. Like, it doesn't really affect anything, right? It's not really interceding with the game, you know? Like, maybe it might be a little bit cringe, but, like, is it against the rules? Like, or rather, should it be against the rules? You know? The rule is fine. The application's kind of dumb. People can still use those tokens as long as they don't say stupid shit. This is like when tier was the shit in Masado. I would use Kaleido Heart sleeves and people would scoop if I activate Foolish. As will I get banned for queuing heroes in Masado with a Malice portrait? Yeah, I don't know. So, like, most of you said no, but or yes? I don't know. Wait, did we? So, rule do you think the rule is dumb or do you not think the rule is dumb? It's not against the rules to do it. It's against the rules to say you did it for this reason. Right. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I mean, right? I'm not. Yeah, obviously, it's not illegal to use Sword Soul token. But do you think it should be, like, bannable to say, like, you know, I'm trying to, like, manipulate someone to thinking I'm playing Sword Soul? Like, we used to do this exact same cringe thing when we were younger during Necros format. We used to play a level 6 Kaleido Heart target. And then we would sit down at the table with our extra deck face up, and there would be a Dark Claw or a Virgil, which was the Kaleido Heart target. If you know anything about Necros format, you'll probably realize that having a level 6 Kaleido Heart target is dumb. You shouldn't have that. But anyway, like, you know, this was like very early days. And yes, I understand I'm self-reporting, but don't worry. This was before it was illegal, okay? This was sorry, not Kaleido Heart. Yeah, Kaleidoscope. This was before it was illegal. I think this tournament policy was updated sometime in like 2019 or something. But yeah, like that was a thing that you could do. People used to put like 15 cards in their extra deck playing extra deckless Monarch because they're tokens. Remember that? People used to do that in like when was Monarch? 2016? Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh was the Wild West up until like, you know, just before 2017, COVID or something. So extra deckless Monarch was really important in the sense that all of your cards needed you to not have an extra deck. Like Domain didn't lock your opponent if you didn't have an extra deck. People who played Erupt, you needed no extra deck. So you sit down to duel against your opponent and you look over at their mat and they don't have an extra deck. It's like, okay, well, I know it's Monarch. So maybe I shouldn't like blind Dweller or something in like Pendulum, for example. Right? Because Dweller isn't very good against I mean, it's okay to be fair, but you know what I mean. You just know your opponent's on a certain deck. If they show up and they're not playing an extra deck in 2016, it's like, okay, this guy's playing Monarch. So people would try and circumvent that by just playing 15 tokens. I think that should probably be illegal. Because that is like deliberately misrepresenting like the field. Like that, in my opinion, like again, we're not talking about is it actually against the rules, we're just talking about concepts. I think that should be illegal. Like, yeah, you are literally manipulating the physical field. But like just putting a Sword Soul token or using a Sword Soul field center because you are and again, you're allowed to do that, but it's about intention. If you're trying to mislead your opponent by playing a big Sword Soul getup, like whatever, you know, that is illegal now. Oh, that's very illegal now. That is extremely illegal, yeah.
Anyone can use Sword Soul tokens at a tournament. This is illegal because of Andre's intent to deceive. Proving intent can turn your area very gray.
Wait, did he actually post the fucking email? A link to a video interview you gave at Charlotte. It's Konami, it's not an interview. Look at these old heads, dude. Interview. It's called a deck profile. Was forwarded to the penalty committee. In the video, you explain how you intentionally place a token in view of your opponent to mislead them about the type of deck you're playing. Playing a game element in a way to intentionally mislead your opponent is listed as misrepresenting the game state. See, I don't actually... that's the thing. I don't think that that's representing the game state. Again, we're talking about concepts, right? Like, I don't think conceptually that's misrepresenting the game state. I think misrepresenting what deck you're playing is really what you're doing. They're not like the game state, right?
This is illegal because of Andre's intent to deceive. Proving intent can turn your area very gray very quickly, so you should be careful about...
I'm not trying to like accuse anyone of anything, but was he the snow guy? If you know what I'm referring to here? Or was that someone else? Wait, he was the snow guy? And the other guys too? Okay, I don't think there was any like controversy about that being... I think the call... okay. I don't know if it was him or not, so I'm just gonna save face here. I'm pretty sure someone, I don't know actually know if it was him specifically, but I know that there was alleged uses of Fairy Tale Snow, where you would banish Despia Tragedy, and use the effect to search for Alibar. But Fairy Tale Snow banishes Tragedy for cost. Despia Tragedy needs to be banished for effect. So if you Snow banish Tragedy, you don't get the search for Alibar. But some people were doing that. And I heard it was deliberate. But again, this is alleged, and I don't know myself specifically who exactly it was. That's what I'll clarify here, okay? So, not accusing anyone of anything, but that I remember that was like a thing around this time period.
About making comments about ways you chose to influence your opponent outside the game. Let's take a look at another line.
Duelists may not answer questions or offer information about game state information that is considered private knowledge.
This is
This
the big one,
prevents
by the
one
way.
of the most basic bluffs you can make outside the game.
By the way, this is something that people still do until today. Even at locals, people like this is just straight up rule breaking at locals. Now, most people don't give a shit because it's whatever. But this is technically against the rules. Everyone does this. Maybe not high levels, but at locals, people do this and no one cares. You know when your opponent does like a unskippable cutscene cinematic combo, right? And then you ask your opponent, oh, so what do I know in hand? Right? Because like maybe they search a card in the process. That's technically illegal. You can't ask that and you can't divulge that question. But generally in casual play, people will just tell you. People just, oh, you know I searched this, or you know I set this. There's a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That like search trap cards, or they set from deck and stuff, right? Like after you've like sat down and played through that, people will just like divulge that, especially at locals. You definitely shouldn't do that at higher. Okay, to make sure I don't get banned, you definitely shouldn't do that ever. That is against the rules. But some people still do that at locals.
Just telling your opponent you have a given card. Even if it was legal, I think
you can technically get around it by, yeah, you can ask like, what did you add with Alibar? Actually no, I don't know if you can do that. Because that's no longer considered public information. You can do it on resolution, and when it's within that sort of relevant time window, but you can't go like, wait 10 steps later until the end of the turn and be like, what did you search with Alibar? I'm pretty sure you can't do that. I'm not sure though. You can ask if it's the same turn, no? No, it has to be within that like time frame. As long as it's the same turn you can. Wait, where are you getting turn from? You're still reacting to this? I got home an hour ago and you're already on this? Yeah, you know, it's a good video. It's a good video. It brings up a lot of interesting things. And I'm a streamer, okay? I can turn a wet fart into a 1-hour lecture.
it's generally good to make these kinds of
just
bluffs
check the
against
log. Yeah,
experienced
exactly.
players in the first place. If anything,
you access
tricks
the
like
log in
these are a sign
TCG?
of weakness. If you actually had an impactful
search
card,
your
it
opponent's
would make
bag.
sense to try and hide it the way that Hansen does against Shorai, instead of forcing your opponent to take it into account. Now, another rule.
Duelists may not make false statements about the game or gameplay, even about information that is considered private knowledge.
So this is really dumb, but like, if you enter battle phase, and I say, don't attack for game, I have a drowning mirror force. That's you're not allowed to do that. You will literally get like game lost for that. I think that's really dumb. I think that's dumb. Do not make false statements about the game, even about information. Wait, hold on. No, hold on. Wait. Scrap everything I just said. So if you lie about something, no, but I think what I said is considered lying. I mean, it is lying, but like if you like deliberately lying about something, right? Like if you say, oh, I searched this card, but you actually searched a different card, you're not allowed to do that. But if you say like, don't attack for game, I have mirror force set, that is literally against the rules. You can't do that, which I think is really dumb. But I think that that's fine, right? Because that's clearly like a, you know, unconfirmable thing. But if someone tries to confirm something with you and you lie about something that was public, like if they go Aliber search and then resolution they say, oh, what did you search? And then you lie, that is very illegal. That's like bannable, not just like, you know, whatever. Patrick Hoban book. Oh, this one's funny. Half of Patrick Hoban's book is now just like bannable offenses. It's really funny.
This rule encompasses a number of ways you could lie and bluff, but one of them is telling your opponent you have lethal when you don't, in order to get them to scoop. Don't do this. Even when Oscar posted this, it was illegal, and the rule is much less lenient about intent here, should a judge be called over. Let's take a look at our last one.
Duelists may not make deceptive offers to or agreements with their opponents.
Well, this is probably getting pretty far
Two
from a bluff at
out
this
of these
point. The classic
examples are
example of
literally
this
from
that
Patrick
took place
Hoban's
in
book.
the ancient year of 2015 would be Jin
Hashtag Jingate.
Hoban making an agreement with his opponent to side out the hated Jin releaser of rituals during an ARG in Necros format, only to side in a second copy. Well, this agreement was maybe true.
Hey, what did Joseph say about that? In the weeks following, they did disseminate guidance that directly spoke to the legality of some of the more egregious cheats. The book wasn't acknowledged. They were just hypotheticals, didn't want copycats. Well, they eventually did add this as policy, yeah.
An ARG in Necros format, only to side in a second copy. While this agreement was maybe true to the letter of what he said, this is obviously intentional deception, and not allowed in Konami-sanctioned events. As you learn more and more techniques to help sell your bluffs,
I mean, it's dumb, but like, I don't know. It's just whatever to me. I don't think that's like the craziest thing ever. What Patrick would do, to be fair, he didn't even do it. He like invented the concept, and then I think his like student at the time did it in an ARG, and like it was never actually used in a Konami event. But basically, let's say hypothetically, let's think of a degenerate example right now. Let's all agree that we will play a mirror match of tier limit. Let's both side out Dweller to make the tier limit mirror a lot more fun and interactive, and not just have an auto win floodgate. You take out your Dweller, and I take out my Dweller. We both physically put it out on the table. Now, in my side deck, what I do is I'm siding a second copy of Dweller, and I put that in my deck. That's what he did. Because you would never play more than one Dweller in tier, and it was at 3. So in order to circumvent that, you're basically like, you know, cheating your opponent out of removing such a important piece, really, in a tier limit mirror. Even though it's like not fun and interactive. Like, obviously, if you have a Dweller and you don't have a Dweller, I'm in a much more advantageous position. Why would you do that? So the reason why people did this is because the Necros mirror was significantly more interactive and fun and skill intensive if Jin wasn't in the mirror. If you went first in Necros and you just play, you just go first, activate Lavaval Chain, send Jin, summon Colossalas, your opponent can't special summon. There's no skill expression. It just you're playing a mirror match, and now you have to draw the out. You have to draw Book of Moon or Raigeki or something. And even if you do, Necros had targeting protection and destruction protection. So you would just die the next turn, even if you did draw the out. That's the funny thing. So people made the game more interesting by siding out Jin. And then Patrick did this, and then people stopped agreeing to side out Jin.
and there are many that I
Book
did
of
not
Eclipse
cover.
was the best
Make
out.
sure to verify whether or not
no
what you are
targeting,
doing
no
is
destruction.
allowed. In my opinion,
I
two
don't
of the
think
most
that didn't really
important parts
catch
of
on too
competing
much.
are
I'm
your
pretty sure
sportsmanship
people were
as
still
a
playing
competitor
things like
and your
Bull
adherence
Blader
to the
and
game's rules.
I guess that was more of a game one
Once
thing.
you stray
Anyway.
beyond that, you undermine the important infrastructure that allows card games to be fun and competitive. With that, I am out of characters, so I guess this is the end.
No!
This has been
He's out of character. That's a really long fucking tweet. How does he tweet for this long? That's insane.
my longest video so far, and I think it's both benefited and suffered from the research I've put into it. Many
I
thanks
read
to
3
Sunny
different books over the course of 2 months
videos so far, and I think it's both benefited and suffered.
as research for this essay. He researches his videos? Oh, wow. That couldn't be some of us, huh? You know what I'm saying? That's a YugiTuber or two could learn something about that.
From
Yeah.
the research I put into
Maybe
it.
take some advice
Many
from him.
thanks to Sunny, Mark the Page, and Thempire Ian for reading quotes for this video.
Research.
I've linked their channels
You
in
don't
the
just
description.
make your videos based
Also,
on
a
vibes and
massive
opinions.
thanks to my patrons. Support on Patreon is what makes putting together videos like this much more.
Oh, dude. 3 Patreons and that fucking idiot is number 1. Okay. Guys, remind me, I will Patreon to Out of Characters tonight. Okay, he deserves it. Especially considering he's given me 2 reacts right now. Someone please ping me. I'll be his thing. We can't see it. There you go. MBT. Bill! Shoutouts to Bill!
More justifiable for me. So if you want to help my work beyond just a like or subscription, which I also
Bill
really
Tin.
appreciate, you know where to go. Be well until next time.
Oh, do we have a nice little outro?
Okay, so
skit?
that's the straight-laced ones. Let's do some silly ones. Duelists may not perform actions that would intentionally mislead their opponent or a tournament official about the game state. And then let's like get a nerdy one going. Duelists may not perform actions that would intentionally mislead their opponents or a
You
tournament
gotta
official
get me
about
on
the
as
game
a
state.
voice actor for this. Okay? You gotta get me on as a... Can I do a voiceover for your next video, please? I'd be really good at it. The jump scare I would give people. Alright, well, thanks for the content. Shoutouts to Out of Characters. Is this you? There you go. Go follow on Twitter as well. And subscribe to him. Very good content. 10 out of 10 stuff. Absolute gamer shit. Alright, bye. See you in the next one.